so far being on here, I've been able to really learn from a lot of people in ways that I wouldn't have otherwise if I didn't get to chat with them for whatever half hour, hour and a half. And
Yeah.
it's been good. And I've been able to apply a lot of that to myself and to my training, and actually with some clients as well, because there's just, there's always new studies coming out, always different research methods, different whatever else. And you see what works and you apply it to your game, right?
Yeah. And obviously being able to talk with everybody that you've had on, you're picking up on different things and, seeing how they do things. And, some may work for you, some may not, but, you can always, branch off their ideas that they pitch you and kind of go from there. That's kind of what I've been trying to, like, I go back and watch a few, like with Josh or Ryan, Gregnall, or like Brandon. And I'm like trying to figure out kind of what they're doing as opposed to what I'm doing, and trying to see if what they're talking about, if I'm able to, implement that or not. So just kind of,
so let's just kind of roll right into it. Thanks for being on here. And before we really get into your background, and because I want to hear about how you got started and everything, but speaking of that and where you are now, I guess you had a great season and you've had a great last couple of years. What are you working on right now to make it even better in 2023?
Yeah, so I have a golf background, and so I've always struggled with trying to implement the ground a little bit more in long drive. You want to have a stable base, on the golf course, you're trying to hit a good tee shot or, control a wedge shot. But for me, I'm really trying to focus on this off season of using the ground a little bit more. And I think just reviewing the tape from just the videos throughout this past year, I think if I can really work on pushing off the ground a little bit more, I'll be able to pick up a few miles per hour. And I feel like I'm in a good spot speed wise, but everybody's getting faster, so you're trying to figure out different ways to try to pick up those extra yards and ball speed numbers. So I think that's the biggest thing I'm working on, and then also working with Bobby on my angle of attack to try to help get my spin numbers down a little bit, because that's always been a little bit of an issue I run into as well, is getting spinny with it. And I mean, it can help me, if we're hitting at elevation, or, if we're downwind, kind of like we were at Worlds for a little bit. But, if it gets down to, or if the wind shifts, then, I've got a problem. So I think just being able to control the spin will definitely be able to help me in the long run as well.
Well, speaking of the footwork and the, ground force reactions, all that kind of stuff, it seemed like going back many years, if you looked at a lot of long hitters, their lead foot would kind of stay where it was, and they would like plant and they would push, but rotate around it a lot. And then in the last probably less than 10 years, but it's really become popular to move that lead foot out of the way, have it sweeping out of the way. So it seems to me that there are kind of two good ways to do it. And I think you're a great example of the former, the one where the foot is not really moving much. Like you, on a lot of swings that I've seen, you almost have your heel pushing into the ground and your toes are up on your lead leg, which is kind of the opposite of when you look at like my swing, for example, where my toe is up or my foot is up, and you create a ton of speed doing it that way. So I don't think that it's like an either or. So when you're talking about pushing off the ground, do you mean with that lead leg or the back foot more, and still just kind of keep rotating into the lead leg?
I guess the feel is trying to push off the lead leg, almost like I'm a baseball player trying to hit a home run. I'm trying to push off by getting behind the ball more, rather than pushing my lead leg away from the ball. So I'm trying to really kind of push back towards, my back leg, and being able to keep my rotation underneath my chin. That way I'm able to kind of push away from the ball, but keep my head behind the ball, rather than feel like I'm pushing away and sliding and spinning out of the swing.
Yeah.
Because I've struggled with the, pushing away and feel like I'm spinning out of it, but I've kind of started to figure out how to be able to push back towards my back leg, and that's been able to help me, stay down and through the ball and keep the rotation under my head and stay behind it.
And you certainly do. But it looks different than, like, if you, I guess on the tournament side of things, if you were to look at Justin Thomas's swing, he has what a lot of people would call like a really, really nice power swing. His lead leg does kind of sweep out of the way as he comes through, really like extend up in the lead leg and through. But then if you look on the other side for this kind of conversation, Scotty Scheffler, his lead leg stays right there, and it's his trail side that's kind of sweeping back and moving around, which is a very odd thing if you're not used to seeing it and you're not used to that style of swing. Not to say that your swing looks like Scotty Scheffler, but that it seems like that way, like Sean Pfister, where you plant that lead leg and you're just almost like a bowling move. You know, if you're throwing a bowling ball, your trail foot goes back.
Yeah.
I don't want to just put extra thoughts in your head, but like, is that, like, do you feel that way, or is it just kind of how you move naturally?
Yeah, I guess I haven't really thought about it that way. That's just kind of how I naturally move.
Okay.
But it's interesting that you make that observation. I've never heard that from somebody before. So
if you can picture Sean Pfister's swing, or if you can't, like, go look it up. I don't know how many times he won world championship and was a great long driver, but he would do, probably a more exaggerated version of what you do, where that lead leg is planted, but you're obviously still putting a ton of force in. Mm-hmm. So then when you measure, like, if you're using force plates, are you just looking at the vertical aspect of it? Like how hard you're pushing down?
Yeah, I really don't have much experience working with force plates, but when I worked with them before, even before I was really working on pushing off the ground, I still had more pressure in my left leg at impact. So it seemed like I was still getting that push off, but I feel like I could definitely improve on it.
So I think you have like I don't know if I would say unique, but like a very, very like special ball flight in the world of long drive, in that from what I've seen, typically your natural shot shape is a low cut. Is that how you would describe it? And I think that's a really cool shot shape, in part because that's not my natural shot shape. So I think it looks awesome to see it hit really well. But I guess that makes sense. If you're really pushing hard like we're talking about, you're going to hit that nice low cut. And but of course, I've seen you hit it really high as well in draws and everything. But compare that with someone like Colton, who's also swinging very fast, but he's going to hit super high and out to the right and draw it back in. Mm-hmm. And again, if you look at the footwork, I guess it would be representative of what we're talking about here, where his lead leg is sweeping all over the place versus yours. Mm-hmm. So is that what your golf background kind of led to? And what was your golf background?
So I grew up, playing as everybody does, kind of growing up, and then I played in high school and then also played Division III golf in college. And, just kind of played Division III golf, nothing special, but still was able to, stay consistent with, ball striking that you wouldn't if you weren't playing in college. And I actually tried to kind of get into the long drive still in college. Like I went to a qualifier up in Memphis while it was still WLD, and, got a driver off the internet and kind of went up there and did okay. I didn't qualify by any means, but, it was something that kind of planted a seed to, maybe this could be something that I check out after I get out of school, once I have a little bit more time to dedicate to it.
Excuse me for a second. I want to tell you real quick about my favorite training aid and a sponsor of the podcast, the Lag Shot. It's designed with what they call lag flex technology that'll help you to create and maintain more lag in your swing, which will give you better consistency and more speed, which we all want, right? But my favorite part is that you can go out and actually hit balls with it. It's a real club. They make a driver, a 7-iron, and a wedge. So you can incorporate it into your practice sessions to ingrain the better technique that it's teaching you. Once you try it, you'll see why I love it. Go to lagshotgolf.com/crush or click the link in the description below to get 15% off Lagshotgolf.com/crush.
So that's kind of, but talking about the shot shape, I've always kind of grown up with hitting a cut. Even like with my irons, hit a straight shot and the ball just falls to the right coming down. That's just kind of been my natural swing. I've never really been able to successfully and repetitively hit a draw, which I actually have been able to, implement a little bit more over the past season of working on shot shaping and everything, which came in handy big time in Memphis. I was like fighting. I couldn't decide what shot shape I wanted to hit. And so I was either fighting the cut, I was hanging on to it and it was going out right, or I was letting it go and it was going out left. And Bobby told me just pick one. And so I was just aiming down the right side and just letting it go. And it, finished runner up, but being able to hit a shot on a day that your swing isn't really rolling is kind of what separates the good long drivers from the great long drivers.
Mm-hmm. I feel like it's uncommon to see somebody who grows up hitting it really far who hits a cut, maybe because of the shaft flexes or something that we have. I don't know what it would be, but I feel like most people who grow up playing through high school and college tend to, whip the shaft, like let it turn over. Mm-hmm. So did you have to fight that, or is that just how it goes?
Yeah, no, I mean, I pretty much never, my shot shape was always a cut. So I guess it just kind of how I learned how to swing the club, and just kind of, I tried to learn to work on a draw. But it just didn't feel naturally. I couldn't get my hands, for some reason. I couldn't trust it consistently on the course. I always felt like I was going to snap hook it. And the last thing you want to do is be standing on a tee box and holy crap, this ball might go dead left. So it's just kind of something that I'd kind of, in a way, put off trying to learn almost. But trying to learn it now and get better at it, because kind of have to.
It's funny because I know exactly what you're saying, except from the opposite perspective, in that hitting a low cut for me was the most unnatural. And so it's something that I actually worked on a lot because I thought it was such a cool looking shot shape, and because it didn't come natural. So I was like, oh, well, I really want to get this. But like one of my favorite shots is for tournament golf, not long drive, is off a tee, not really like a stinger, but like a low cut, and just knowing with an iron that it's just going to like find its way right down into the fairway. It's just, I don't know, it's great. But for me, I have that same concern. Like, okay, I'm really like holding off to get it de-lofted, and I'm swinging left to cut it. What if my hands release? And, then there's a whole world of problems.
Right.
But man, what a good looking shot shape if you can do that consistently.
Mm-hmm. Right.
When you start to then work on turning it over, do you find your speeds increase?
I think they stay about the same. I think if I was really only focused on turning it over, they would eventually start to creep up. I think just because I'm letting it go. But I really haven't measured enough to be able to know the difference.
Okay. So then, like when you and Bobby are working on things, are you experimenting still? Because you're relatively new to the sport. Are you still experimenting with all different kinds of like flexes and lofts and stuff like that? Or is that really a condition dependent change?
Yeah. I've tried to work with the D10, and I just really haven't been able to find success with it. I've been using the D30. So when I started, I only had the D60, and I pretty much only used the D60 leading into like starting long drive it was about 2 years. And then just because I didn't know that there was a D30, I didn't know that there were softer shafts. And so when I got the D30, I was like, man, this is a huge like difference. And I found that I was able to obviously swing it faster, was with less effort, and so I wasn't getting near as tired. And so the D30 really worked well for me, and it's been a good it's just been a good shaft for me. I feel like I'm able to really feel the head well, and then but it doesn't feel like super whippy like the D10 would.
Yeah, and then there's even a D5. Have you tried that?
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, it's
That's
wild. I've
scary.
only hit it a couple times, but it's it's a little tough for me.
Yeah, that's scary. I don't know. I wouldn't be able to find the face. I feel like.
It's funny when you go back and forth because the LD30 plus is what I used for quite a while, and then I went down to the D10, and it was just like a noodle, and then I would go back to the LD70, or the LD60 plus. I think those were the two, and it like the first couple swings they feel so stiff, but then you kind of load it a little bit differently, and you adjust. But I actually really liked I think it's the charged, which is a single kick point instead of a double kick point.
Okay.
And for people who aren't familiar, but they're listening, these are all kinetic shafts that we're talking about. Most of them are double kick point, but like I said, the charge I think is single. And to me, that feels a lot more like a play driver that I grew up playing. It's almost like there's one less. I'm sure I'm not right. Like if we had Jason Hordesky on here, he'd probably say, no, that's not the right way to think about it. But it almost feels like there's just one less variable to think about. With one kick point, there's not quite as much moving around. Have you tried that one?
No, I haven't. Yeah, I've only really used the Patterson. I think I had a House of Ford shaft, and it probably wasn't even the right shaft for me, but because I got it from a guy who used to compete a little bit, just because he had it and wasn't competing anymore. So, but I've really only really used the Patterson.
Yeah, I mean, made by Patterson Kinetics, the charged version.
Okay.
That's the single kick point one. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So, all right, I'm curious about how the stepping trigger came about. That's a pretty noticeable one. So you and a couple other guys I have coming up soon to be on here have very noticeable pre-shot routines, and yours of stepping is pretty noticeable. How did that come about?
So obviously, Kyle had success with kind of a rock motion in 2019. And that was when I was starting to kind of really start learning about long drive, started really preparing for it. Obviously it was on the Golf Channel, it was on TV. And so I just kind of, he had just won the world championship doing it. And so I kind of started just playing around with it. And then I just eventually found that I was a lot more comfortable with my timing and my takeaway if I was already kind of moving before I started swinging instead of swinging from a static standpoint. And I just kind of, I'll go back and like watch videos of my progression from 2021. And it's funny, like I start out kind of like a rock, and then eventually towards the end of the season, it's just turned into like stepping. And I don't know, to me, it's just psychologically, I feel like I'm able to time it up better and swing faster. And even, when I'm hitting on a TrackMan now, if I'm swinging from a static position and just take it away, it just feels out of sync and feels like I'm yanking the club back. And I for whatever reason, I've had trouble with swinging from the static point, and it's just kind of developed into the step. And yeah, it gets a lot of talk. Definitely, on social media, you definitely have the people, bashing it, and then, saying it's really weird and why am I doing it? But, it's just kind of what I got to do. And it's been successful for me now. And it is something that I have worked with Bobby on, and we discussed it and be like, hey, is it actually benefiting you, or is it just do you think it helps you? And we were kind of testing it and working on it, and we came to the conclusion that it was benefiting me in my takeaway, and I was able to be more stable on my trail hip, and then I was able to just transition my weight more fluidly. And so I'm sure we'll reassess it next month, and since it's the off season, and then if it's continuing to keep me progressing, then I'll keep it. But if it's not, then we'll start looking at different alternatives to try to get better. So
I think for everybody who would be critical of, say, oh, that's weird, why do you do it? If you could take a video of your swing right after you do your last step and only look at it from there, it looks like a very traditional, very nice swing.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe the people who are critical of it are just fixated on the movement, not on the actual swing itself, because you got a great swing. The movement is just unorthodox, but it goes back to the, kind of the question of, do you want to look good or perform good, perform well? But like, obviously everybody wants to perform at their best. And I mean, I've thought for a long time, if you had somebody like Tiger come out and do like the silliest thing you could imagine, you'd have thousands or millions of people the next week all trying that exact same weird looking thing, whatever it is. Right. So I like it. And I think it's great as well when you find somebody like you who has success with something, and if they get like some negative feedback about it, and you just don't care and you just keep pushing through because it works. Yeah. So on that note of succeeding and doing well, in your relatively short long drive career, you've had a bunch of top finishes, top 5th place last year at the World Championship, 3rd place this year at the World Championship, and a lot of other top 10s and whatnot. So tell us all that.
Yeah. So 2021 was my first official year competing in long drive, and I started in the amateur division, which was awesome. And I had no idea how I really compared to the guys that I was competing with. I had been training for about a year. I was training, getting ready to compete on World Long Drive, try to start competing, and then obviously COVID hit, and but I just stayed consistent with it and kept practicing. And then my first amateur event was in Memphis in 2021, and finished second. Lost to Kyle Gabbard on the last ball in the championship, and so that was already like a good sign. Like, okay, like I got balls in play. Like I was already really close to winning my first amateur event. And
that's a pretty tough grid to start on as well.
Yeah. And then I did 2 more amateur events, both at the One Step Power Shop in North Carolina, and I won both of those. And then after the second amateur event I won, I decided to turn pro and do my first official pro event the next day in North Carolina. And so I finished, I did two tour events and the World Championship in 2021. And I finished second in North Carolina behind Kyle. I finished second behind Martin in Salt Lake City, where I went OB in the finals. So that was like my first taste of going OB in a really critical spot. But then I followed it up with a 5th place at World Championship, which was, it just assured me that, I was in a really good spot, and that I was just stoked to get ready for a full season on tour. And then, so 2022, this past season, I had a couple rocky, but I had a couple finishes that I wasn't too pleased with. I finished 10th, or in the 6 tournaments I competed in last year, I finished outside the top 10 3 times, but then I also finished like tied for 5th in Salt Lake City, 2nd in Memphis behind Kyle, and then 3rd at the World Championship. So I definitely had a really good ending to the season this year. I think this coming season will be focusing on really, getting, when we're into the middle of the season, just really trying to stay focused. And because that's kind of where I slipped up this past year. I had a few swing issues, but I think trying to be consistent with training and hopefully be able to put up some more consistent finishes and hopefully be able to get my first win, this coming season. But I mean, the competition is, as you know, it's getting harder. It's tougher every day. And, the guys out there now are just beasts, and it's like anybody can win. So it's going to be tough, but, I'm really looking forward to this season.
Yeah, same here. Since we both come from like tournament backgrounds, I'm wondering for you, what do you feel when you're up doing a long drive event? Does it feel like a golf swing, or does it feel kind of like just a different athletic endeavor? How close, I guess, to tournament golf?
I try to, when I get on the grid, I really try to simplify everything. It's kind of like just the golf background is pick a target, have one swing thought, and go. And then wherever it goes, just kind of reassess. So I think that's what I did really well at Worlds this year, was not trying to get ahead of myself, really focus on every swing and just pick a target, have one swing thought, and then just go. So as simple as I can make it, I found the better I do. Because when I was earlier in the season, I was going through kind of a swing change, and I was thinking about, my takeaway, and thinking about where it was at the top and then what I had to do on the downswing, and everything was just kind of I had too many thoughts going in my head, and I was focused on everything but hitting the ball. So I think just from a golf standpoint, being able to kind of have that tunnel vision and really focus on each specific shot rather than, getting ahead of yourself. And, even if you win your first set, then, I mean, you could go OB 4 times in a row in the next 4 sets. So it's definitely easy to get ahead of yourself. And, with a big grid, it's like, I can hit the grid if I just aim, out there somewhere, and doesn't usually work out that way. So
no, I feel like you can get away with it a lot easier on the golf course. If you're just hitting a pitching wedge or whatever, you can think a little bit more about positional stuff. Not that you should, but you can scrap it together instead of, because long drive, some people just think of it as like a brute whatever kind of activity. But when you look at the data, because we're swinging so fast, the level of precision that's required is even higher than out on the golf course. Like your angles and everything, and the strike centeredness on the face has to be so precise to land it in the grid that, and you're asking for max speed and that high level of precision. You've got to find some way to basically clear your mind, either understand everything and like have like a Rain Man focus of every thing going on in the swing, which maybe it's possible, or kind of shut your brain off and be an athlete. And sometimes it's hard coming from the tournament side, right? Because you're like, that's so much of a slower pace, non-adrenaline filled usually activity compared to long drive.
Yeah. I think, just being able to focus in, and, it's easier said than done, but, not getting ahead of yourself in a way that, if you hit your first 3 balls out of bounds, not panicking. That's the one thing about long drives. Like one bad shot's not going to kill you. So, that's a
really nice part. Yeah. So then if you're on the golf course, let's say you're hitting a driver on par 5, whatever, and then take that exact swing, in terms of hitting a driver, and then you go onto long drive, what are you feeling and consciously doing to increase the speed?
I think the step, obviously, it's kind of like a change in my brain that when I start doing the steps, like, all right, I'm hitting long drive. But then also I think just naturally when I have the long driver in my hand, like I'm just able to take the club further back. I really try to keep the same swing thoughts. I really try to, not overcomplicate it, but I really think just this doing the step to me, it kind of like acts as like a trigger that, hey, I'm hitting a long driver rather than just hitting a normal tee shot.
Okay.
Because like when I am hitting a tee shot on a golf course, I don't feel like I'm, getting jerky with the takeaway for some reason, but I do with long drive. I think it's, I don't know. It's just kind of I really do think the step is kind of just like a switch.
I would love to see like a big study on muscle fiber types on different long drivers, because there are some guys like Landon is a great example, Ryan Respect, that are pretty static. Like they'll set up and there'll be not a whole lot of movement, and then they'll go. And that's totally different from like what you do, Martin. And I'm wondering if it's a muscle fiber thing, if it's, I don't know, but people, I guess, can do well both ways. I feel like I'm like you in that if I were to just stand there and then try to start moving, it would not be very good. And
right.
I always equate it back to when I'm doing like speed deadlifts in the gym. If I go down and I set up and I take my time and then I brace and everything and pull, it is so much slower than if I just go down and grab the bar and stand back up. So I try to apply that same feeling into my golf swing, well, long drive swing, where there's that movement, there's trigger, there's something to keep it fresh.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really important thing. But I wonder why. I wonder why there's such a big difference between people.
Yeah, I don't know. I've always wondered how, Ryan just kind of, takes his time, super slow to get over the ball, and then he doesn't have really a fast takeaway, but then he gets to the top and he sets it really well and hits it really well. So
let me ask one more kind of extension of what I tried to ask earlier. Let's say that you just hit a good ball in play, you're in a set, but somebody hit it farther. You've already hit a good ball, so you already know like approximately what the distance is. But if you need to go farther, what do you think about or feel then?
I think I try to fire my hands faster fire my hands faster at the ball rather than being quick from the top. I think just trying to speed everything up rather than swing harder. That's kind of what I try to do, because if I try to swing harder, I'll get steep and I'll start spinning the ball, and it's just not going to go well. So I think just really having the fast hands at the ball, and again, not trying to get ahead of myself and start over complicating everything. Just kind of trust that the swing I'm putting on it, and then maybe I'm thinking about a different ball flight depending on the conditions. If I hit a good one, but I know I should have hit it a little higher, I might try to work on a little bit more spine tilt, or regardless, whatever the conditions are favorable at that time. But just trying to be faster rather than swing harder, swing at the ball.
And you said faster through impact, not from the top. So are you then consciously, like, are you trying to be precise on when you're being that faster part? Because I've also heard people say, like, if you're trying to be faster from the top, I've actually heard it both ways. I think it was the athletic motion guys on Instagram and YouTube, I think. They say that your speed from like the top of your backswing to like rib high is a huge indicator of what your max speed is going to be. But then I think it was maybe Bryson told me, he's like, if you're really fast from here to here, you're probably just throwing things out of sequence. You're not actually going to be speeding up at the ball, because that's not where the speed matters.
Yeah. I'm thinking about being fast from essentially my hip and through the ball. Because if I try to get fast from here, then I get steep, and then spin it. So that's something I've been working on a lot more this off season as well. Is really working on that feel of firing from. It's essentially firing hip to hip with my hands
Hmm.
to try
like
to
it, yeah.
to try to
Hip,
pick
that's
up.
good.
It's almost like I was talking to Brandon about it, and I told him it's like hitting a bunker shot. Like you want to be fast at the ball, but you don't want to be fast from the top. And so
that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
Did you play other sports growing up? You're a big dude, so.
Yeah, I grew up playing baseball, basketball, football. I kind of hit my growth spurt later. I didn't really hit growth spurt until like 10th grade. And so I kind of just shot up, and then I had my golf coach in college he was a physical trainer as well. And so he was really big about, being in the gym in the off season. And I worked with him for my freshman year because he eventually left after my freshman year. But the off season he was there, he kind of got me hooked on going to the gym, and that's kind of when I started really lifting weights and doing that. So, but I only played golf from high school through college. I didn't play any other sports in high school other than golf.
Okay. Yeah, same here. But do you ever feel like that, like the release of a baseball throw or football or anything, does that carry over into your golf swing at all?
I think the baseball swing, it could, or I'm sorry, the baseball pitching motion could. Just having that rotational movement, and then being explosive, everything working in sync and being explosive, throwing towards the plate. I don't really have like that. I thought it would be interesting to like try to start incorporating that into my training, like Ryan was talking about, that he's consistently throwing and even hitting as well. I just don't really have access where I'm at to a batting cage or anything like that. But, there's a reason that a lot of baseball guys and pitchers have a lot of success in long drives. Everything is all about sequencing and being able to generate power from either a static or, a full sequencing motion, which is exactly what we're doing for long drive. But yeah, I think it would be, very beneficial if I was able to implement it consistently in my training.
What does your training look like now? And I guess how has it changed from when you started in college?
This off season, I've been trying to really get focus more in the gym on my legs and my back, just rather than trying to go and have huge pecs and huge arms and everything. And then also trying to maintain that explosiveness. So I've been I was lifting heavy this off season, but now since we're kind of getting closer, we're almost 3 months out from the season, kind of start transitioning to a more athletic training process. It's almost like a baseball off season training now, being more explosive in lifting, and then also doing more like body weight stretching and dynamic work and like that. So just trying to go to the gym 2, 3, maybe 4 times a week, but then also hitting. I've been hitting about 2 to 3 times a week. But I definitely know if my body's taxed and I try to do a speed session and the speeds just aren't, they're just not there that day. So I think just trying to make sure I'm progressing at a rate where I'm not, I guess, exhausted when the season starts. I want to be in a good position in my stamina for swinging, which I think that was another reason why I did pretty well towards the end of the season, as I had built up a really good stamina, and like at Worlds, I was swinging faster on the last day than I was the first day. So I think being able to have a good, consistent program to be able to maintain your body and keep it, ready to compete at any time. That's kind of what I've been kind of focusing on.
Nice. That's hard to do. It's hard to peak on the fourth day after 3 days of hitting. That's impressive. But I feel like since you brought up Ryan Gregnall, for everybody, he had such a tremendous base of strength that most of his exercising now is just going to be kind of explosive and a little more specific. But you do need that base of strength, and a lot of people, I think, kind of, you can do it concurrently. You can train explosiveness and strength, but it does seem, from my experience, to work better if you are able to do whatever you need to establish that strength first, and then like really specialize afterwards.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's examples both ways. Again, it's really, I don't think you can ever come up with just like a hard and fast rule. Like, this is how you have to do it.
Right.
Because you'll always find an outlier, especially when you're looking at a sport like long drive, which is, we're already outliers. So we are already going to be breaking a lot of like the norms and the rules of how people would think you need to get something done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I've gotten to a point fitness wise that I feel comfortable. Like, I'm at a position where I can just maintain where I'm at, rather than I feel like I need to get bigger and stronger. I feel like I'm at a good point now. This is like the first time where I really like feel comfortable with where I'm at. So now I can start transitioning and working on that more explosiveness, and just be more athletic rather than, a weightlifter. So,
yeah. Did you listen to the episode, or do you know Bill Miller and his training techniques?
I don't.
No, it's really cool. He works with a ton of baseball players of all different levels and golfers, and he has some interest in long drive as well. But it's like all kinds of cool throwing and like really measuring the velocity. And of course, strength is important. He acknowledges that strength is key, but you also, like, you need that velocity work. So he'll have his people doing certain throws and jumps and everything, and he measures it all really precisely, which is awesome, because then you can track your progress that way. And I was talking with him, and it's a weird thing, because I feel like I need that like mental, like, it just feels good mentally to go into the gym and lift something really heavy. But of course, after some point, whatever, like, it's not going to be helping me as much as if I was doing like different kinds of like shuttle sprints maybe, or like the very, very snappy jumping, instead of like, I've heard it described before. Like, I think it's a tiger and a gazelle. Like, if you can picture a tiger who's going to jump, he'll like go and like get down real low, and then everything launches up at the same time. But a gazelle is just like bing, bing, that kind of thing. And like, it's like that fast twitch rate of force development kind of thing, which I think carries over to the golf swing a lot better. But it's not quite as satisfying to go and train those. I want to go do a heavy deadlift. I want to go, do something that way.
Just so you can still do it.
Okay. Well, good.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. Like, you just, if you don't lift something heavy for a little while, you're like, you feel like you're going to lose it. So you got to go make sure you can go do it and prove to yourself that you still got it,
Yeah. Do you have a trainer at this point, or do you make your own programming?
No, I just make my own programming.
Nice. Well, it's working. How about diet? What do you eat?
I've always kind of focused on what I've been eating since college, really. I feel like I've maintained a pretty good discipline with it. In the morning I'll get up and either have, like egg whites and turkey bacon, or I'll make my own like protein French toast. I do that a lot as well. And then, I mean, if you ask, the guys I room with, my girlfriend, I'm always eating chicken and sweet potatoes. I mean, I cycle through chicken, fish, ground turkey, tenderloin, and then I'll, throw some potatoes in the air fryer or some vegetables on the skillet. And that's kind of what I eat. So, I have been I guess you call it slacking a little bit, but I'm always pretty mindful of what I'm eating. I feel like I've become pretty disciplined in that, and it's obviously not easy. You always want to indulge in some pizza or cheese or some nachos, queso and all that, but I feel like I'm pretty good on that end at being pretty disciplined, and I've been doing it for years now, so I feel pretty good about it.
That's a big part of it. I think once you can make it like a routine and you're used to it, then it just comes easy, right? Like it's not like you don't feel compelled to try to stick to something. It's something you like and you're used to doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not traveling with my own brisket like you do, but
I wish I had brisket to travel with. That'd be awesome. I ended up usually just ground beef or steak or something. But man, anytime there was a long drive tournament in. Oh man, where was it? Somewhere in I think it was in Tennessee somewhere, and they had a local barbecue place come and cater it. I wish I could remember the dude's name. It was the best brisket I've ever had, and especially after just hitting for however many hours, and that was good.
Yeah, we get pretty good barbecue in Birmingham, but I mean we have tons of different like styles here, so we get a pretty good mix. And it's usually pretty good.
So you don't do like what would like is gumbo, jambalaya? Are they more like traditional dishes there, or no? Am I off?
No, so that's more like Cajun. So my girlfriend, she's from Baton Rouge actually, so we get a lot of gumbo and jambalaya and crawfish and all that kind of stuff. But being in Alabama, the Southern cooking with the chicken and the gravy, and it's just not a lot of healthy food. So you kind of gotta moderate yourself a little bit.
Are you a grits guy?
No, I hate grits.
From Alabama, and you don't like grits?
No, that's the one thing that I absolutely cannot eat is grits.
Okay, well. I'm sure you've tried it all different kinds of ways too, so I'll take your word on it.
I guess the only way I will eat it is if it's cheese grits, and there's a barbecue restaurant here where you can get smoked chicken and collard greens on a bed of cheese grits, and I'll eat it that way.
That sounds pretty good, yeah. Yeah, I think it would need that. It definitely needs cheese.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
What about like before a tournament? What do you eat? To still feel like active?
Yeah, I try to obviously hydration is like the biggest thing, but really trying to carb load like the night before. Usually regardless of what I eat the night before, I'm usually pretty good at not feeling like sluggish in the morning. But at Worlds, like I would eat like an omelet and like a big stack of pancakes or something like that for breakfast. But obviously keeping in mind, if I don't want to eat a lot of food early, or if I'm hitting early. So, a lot of Cliff bars, a lot of protein bars. And then just the hydration. That's one of the biggest things that I've learned is kind of the process that I need to take on if we're going to be hitting. For one day, it's a little easier, but for Worlds, drinking all kinds of fluids, electrolytes. I mean, I felt like I was just drinking the whole time we were in Mesquite, but it's what I had to do, and it worked out. So just kind of it's what you got to do.
And like you said, the electrolytes, like that's key. I've had times where I'm just drinking a ton of water and it doesn't help at all. You just feel bloated, but you know that you're not actually getting it in the muscles.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, it's like almost like between every set, you got to take down a half a bottle.
Yeah. Yeah. In Denver, I started cramping, and then, after I started cramping, I was toast. Like my hands and my forearms are cramping. It wasn't really my legs, but my left hand was cramped onto the club. Like I couldn't take it off, and then my forearms. And so after that, I was like, all right, I'm not dealing with that again. And the closest I got to cramping again was in Salt Lake. I was able to make it to the very, the end, the top 8. And, we were out there because I was the first group Sunday morning. And so I was out there for, about 11 hours. And I remember laying on the ground because I drank so much fluid that like it was almost like I couldn't even swing the club around my belly because it was just like I was so bloated. But I just had to lay there and let everything digest because I felt like I was about to cramp. I was like, and so I was just drinking all kinds of Gatorade and eating table salt. So it was just like I had to just let my body absorb it. And then I got to a point where I could actually compete without, fearing that I was going to cramp. So
that was in Utah?
Yeah, in Utah.
Okay. Yeah. So the elevation, I'm sure, didn't help either.
Yeah.
I feel like every time I go up, so I live now, I guess at like 2,200 or something, but when I go up to like Denver or anywhere, Utah, I feel like your body just kind of like purges a lot of liquid going up in elevation. Right. So it's, you got to fight that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's important. I mean, you don't take care of yourself, you're going to be out pretty quick.
Mm-hmm. So tell me from your perspective, because from my perspective, it was a really exciting finish at Worlds, but I wasn't the one hitting there in the final 3, 4. So what happened there in your last set and with Bryson's last ball?
Yeah. So I hit I believe it was like my 3rd or 4th ball, and I put a pretty good number out. But I knew it had a chance to be beaten. But then obviously I knew that I saw that Bryson was behind me and he had his last ball. And so,
well, not to interrupt, but let me just say, because for that whole day, when you were winning a set, it was oftentimes by a pretty big margin. Like your balls, I think, were the longest for most of the sets.
Yeah. So I had my first set, I had the longest ball of the entire day at 4:35.
Okay.
But then, yeah. And then I did really well. I was like the 1 seed going into the final 8, and then, hit it over 400 again in the final, in my top 8 group, and won that as well. And so I was still, I was beyond, I was so confident and felt like I hit a pretty good ball. And then I knew just based on the score that I was ahead. Martin was ahead of me, but I knew Justin had just gone OB because I saw him hit his last ball and it went out. And then Bryson was behind me, and I saw him hit his 6th ball, and I knew it was out, but I still had my last ball to hit. And so I was like trying not to get too excited just because, I still had a ball to hit. And I hit it so hard. And I still don't know how it didn't stay in, because I thought, because we were hitting with a left to right wind, and it was a pull directly on the left line. And I thought with the wind that it would just blow it right in. And I thought that ball would be even further than my 395 ball. And so that got called back OB, which I was like pretty upset about because I knew that it was going to be longer. And then, we were just kind of waiting for the confirmation. And then there was I wanted to celebrate, but there was like this thing in the back of my mind that, like, what if he just gets a call back? And it happened. So, yeah, it was pretty rough. I've said before, it was bittersweet. Like I competed so well that day, and finishing 3rd of the World Championship is great, but like I was so close to being in that final, just having the opportunity to win. And it was almost like I didn't have closure on it. It was like, I'm in it. Like, I had already kind of started to switch mindsets about, being in the final. And then it was like, oh, he beat you. And then you're done. So it was I was thinking about it like the rest of the weekend, like just going back to Vegas in the car ride, being on the plane, it's just like what just happened? Like I was still just like blown away from it. But it is what it is. It's a long drive. I was proud of myself that I got beat, and then I felt like I didn't lose. Like I got beat. So I did everything that I could, and he just hit a better ball than I did at that time.
Yeah. What's cool, it could be one of those things where, like you just said, you felt like your mindset changed a little bit. I wonder if that's going to be like a learning experience where now, excuse me, in future circumstances like that, to not allow that mental shift, and to still keep it sounds like you hit your last ball great. So I'm not saying you messed up like mid set or anything, but I wonder if that could just be something cool that like you can keep referencing as you keep getting better and better, and say like, yep, all right, I had that unfortunate experience. I've learned from it, and I'm going to apply this lesson that I got out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, you went 5th in the world, 3rd in the world. You're on a pretty good path for next year. So
if the past stays the course, then, we'll see.
Yeah. So what are your plans now? You said, I think you're going to go down to Bobby's or go up to Bobby's. Is it up to Bobby's for you?
Yeah. It's up.
Over.
Up and over. Yeah.
Okay. You're going to go there in about a month and train with him?
Yeah. We'll spend a weekend and try to just get in a good spot. And, we'll have a couple months leading into the season, and, we'll try to work on a few things and just kind of show him what I've been working on mostly, and then how we want to move forward from there. Mm-hmm. And then just excited for the season, ready to get the schedule soon.
Yeah, for sure. Same here. Well, hopefully it works out. I know I'll be going down there in a little while as well, and hopefully it works out. We can get some good training in together.
Sure.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for the insight and some good lessons that hopefully we can all apply when we're in those kind of clutch scenarios. Always keep the pedal down, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right. You never know. You might win a world championship. Just keep that mentality.
That's right. Well, thanks again, and I'll see you soon.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it, Steve.
All right.
Have a good one.